Cool. All right, here we go. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is another Cool Roofs podcast with the one and only, I call him the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Mr. Trey Stafford. Trey, how are we doing today?
Blessed, man. Thanks for having me.
Of
I don't know about
course.
the GOAT. That's probably you.
I don't know. Hey, if I'm that too, then we're hanging out in the GOAT form. So I'll say this, man. You flew in from Memphis, and you're with us. We're actually having some fun this weekend. We're going to go see Zach Bryan with my fiance and your wife. So it's going to be a grand old time.
Good time. Texas is a wonderful place. Greatest country in the world.
Great. I agree with that, with Tennessee right behind it. So Memphis is the greatest city in the world. So
True.
Trey and I have been friends now since 2013.
I think that's when we met. We were 19, weren't we?
We were 19.
It's 12 years now. That's kind of wild to think about.
It's crazy. And knowing that we're both in the network marketing industry, it's how we met through the beautiful company called Vima, which...
Shout out Verve.
Shout out BK Barreco. Dream big dreams, small dreams have no magic. And
I love that.
man, we've gone through a lot together. We've tried different ventures and we've invested in different things, put time in different things. But about, 3.5 years ago, we decided to just partner up on roofing and what we like to call burn the ships on any and all opportunities and just focus on this amazing company called Cool Roofs.
Yeah, I think that all of that experience led us up to this point, but I think the moment that we made the shift and actually listened to all the advice of, hey, if you focus on one thing as opposed to spreading yourself thin, really was a major key to the success that we've been able to have and create for the teams of people that we lead. So it's been exciting.
It's so exciting. There's so much advice that we got, like, hey, do this from like very reputable people that I would call a mentor. Yeah. And it's funny, I have some younger guys in my life who I try and give that same advice to. Of course they don't listen. And I'm like, well, I didn't listen. I'm like, you'll figure it out. And I think it's important that we go through those current situations that we were a part of to build a better today. Because, I mean, gosh, we learned a lot.
For sure. I think one of the things that I reflect on from that season so much is the idea of learning from somebody else's mistakes and how it's a lot easier to say it than it is to do it.
For sure.
And so here we were trying to be exactly the opposite and trying to go this current that's a lot harder, where you've got multiple opportunities and businesses that you're running. And all the while, you had Cool Roofs as this back pocket business that, or I think as I called it whenever we first started working together, a really good job and not really a business. But when we focused in on the one thing and we made the one thing the priority, we really started to see a lot of growth, which is really exciting.
Sure. And it all started when you were in town. We were working on a side project we don't have to get into, and we were up in my mastermind room at my old house. We had the conference table, the whiteboards, the TV, and you're like, hey, show me on the whiteboard how you run this whole thing called Cool Roofs. And at that time, we were like, literally had this company run on a whiteboard. We had no systems, we had no process, we had no education, we had no leadership. We really didn't have anything. And for all those of you who don't know, Trey is our COO, wears multiple hats in the business, but more importantly, he's really the brainchild behind systematizing this thing and creating it to be more so of a tech company that just so happens to do roofing. So tell me about that experience and like us looking back on that now and actually how massive we are, going from that small little war room that we called it to now what it is today. It's astonishing.
Yeah. One thing that I loved about that is I think a lot of people use, maybe I don't have the money for an office or I don't have the opportunity, a place to go and mastermind and work on my craft and my business. And I love that instead of having a upstairs game room with a pool table or a ping pong table and a big TV and a big couch, Colt puts a conference table and a whiteboard and a TV in his home and turns his home into the place that he's able to bring people in. And we had several meetings with 5-6 people where we would come together there And I thought that was always something really special and cool. But
Dude, I built the conference war room before I even had like couches or a TV for the living room. It was a must. It was a must.
Yeah, I got to have your priorities straight. But reflecting back on that moment, I had swore up and down as a child of a home builder that I was never going to be in construction. And so I think we really happened into this where we were on the tail end of the COVID-19 stuff. Everything was opened up again, and we were looking at each other like, okay, what's next? And at that time, I was spending about half of the time in Austin. So I would come and sleep on a couch for 2 weeks out of the month.
Yep.
And it was a great time. So I knew nothing about roofing. I knew nothing about insurance or shingles or anything about the business at all, but I had a feel for workflows and operations. And so when we decided, okay, we're going to make a flow chart on a whiteboard and ask a million questions, and I'm just going to learn about roofing. And your patience there was admirable, because I would be like, okay, but what about this? And you'd be like, well, it's just, you'd make it sound so simple and easy. I'm like, well, I don't know that, you know, and if I don't know it, then most of the people that we bring in the future probably won't know it either. So like, let's make it really, really simple. And then let's take what we create on this whiteboard and let's make it digital. And then let's find a software, let's find a team of people that will help us make this a reality.
Yep.
And after doing some digging, and I think you gave me every login that you have for the company, which at the time was probably like 3 or 4.
No,
So,
like,
you know, a bank, an email, and maybe two little softwares, and an invoice system, right? And but one of those tools that you had signed up for, probably not even realizing what you had signed up for, was Job Nimbus.
Yep.
And at the time, I think we were paying like $50 a month for you to have a login.
Yep.
And after digging and realizing, we really hitched our wagon to Job Nimbus. And oftentimes I tell people I think we use it better than it's even supposed to be used.
It's on steroids.
So it's so that was what we did, and we took that whiteboard and we put it in there, and it made your life easier in the interim. And I think that was kind of our initial goal, was how do we make it really easy for Colt to do what he does, because if it makes it easy for Colt to sell roofs and fulfill for his customers, then ultimately we can duplicate that and allow other people to plug in. And over the last 3 years, that's exactly what we've done, and we've made it better and better. I mean, I think the version of what we have now compared to what we had then, it wouldn't even look night and day. It wouldn't even look the same, but it was a great start. So,
and it's crazy talking about starting. I mean, think about 3 years ago when we took this, put it on a whiteboard, and now we've arrived to a destination. And at this destination, as we look back, I mean, it's crazy to think at that point we had a small branch in New Braunfels.
Yeah.
Now we have Hudson Witten working with us, commercial specialist, Eddie working with us, commercial specialist, almost 30 plus individuals who are qualified sales reps, roofing specialists out in the field getting it every day. We now have a Dallas branch, an Austin branch, a New Braunfels branch, a San Antonio branch, a Houston branch. You have a branch in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And it's wild. You took the education of what we've taught within those systems and processes, opened up your own successful branch. And I mean, this year you took on a multifamily project, 38 buildings, 260,000 square feet of roofing needs that needed to be done. Not just roof decking, you even remodeled completely a burnt down rehab project that was on that property. So it's just amazing. Like, that's only like a small fraction of what it is that we've been able to accomplish in these 3 short years, prepping us up for our most successful year this far. But, you know, express and explain, like, when you start to build a business, how important is infrastructure as far as systems, processes, to have that foundation to build on?
Well, you know, I think it's definitely very important to have a strong foundation. You know, we always compare business to real estate and the idea of construction as a whole. But when you break it down to real estate, I think it becomes very simple. You know, you've got your land, and then what do you do with your land? You prep your land, and then you build a foundation on that land. And then from there, you can continue to build on top of that. So you can do renovations if you need to, or you can make adjustments and changes, or you can go higher up. But when you really think about your system that you operate in, and I've always said that system was an acronym. I tried to trademark this years ago and it wouldn't let me, but system is an acronym for save yourself stress, time, energy, and money. And so when you have a system in place that allows you to do that, that has a fallback for you where if this, then I do this, it's more of a logical approach as opposed to a reactive emotional approach. Regardless of the circumstance, what my next action needs to be, because I just default to the SOP. I default to the process and to the system. The trick is teaching other people what the system is. For sure. Right? And so that's where over the last, I think, really 6 months, our company has seen a huge growth pattern. Is we've been able to teach other people and then now teach other people how to teach other people the system. So how do we get more and more individuals plugged in, where we're at a pace right now where I think we'll have 16 bronze associates by the end of Q3, which those are $100,000 owners, or $100,000 reps inside of our company. Yep. And that's huge. And that's life-changing for a lot of people too.
And it's so cool is like leadership is everything in a business. And so when you say we have these systems that we line out, we also can plug people into those systems to assure the roles and responsibilities of that specific person. So in the event that we do find an issue, rather than putting any emotion, which most businesses fail because leadership is emotional and they react rather than respond. For sure. We've built a very responsive machine because we can hold accountability by understanding the roles and responsibilities that that person has in the system. And if something falls through the crack, we just look at the system, we look at whose role and responsibility was that. There's no emotion needed. It's clear as day. Yeah. And so I find that to be fascinating, but also we just had an organization come over from one specific company, brought over 12 sales reps, and used to, if this would have happened prior to having systems, we would have been just using all of our time to have to teach them, to coach them. But in this instance, they started on a Friday. I said, hey, in order to show up on a Monday, you have to complete what we call our 360 platform. And that 360 platform, we put a lot of time in that really compresses the time frames of learning and understanding of roofing and the day-to-day, our systems, our technology, our CRMs. And once you pass that, then we understand that you're committed. So if you pass it, show up on Monday. And out of the 12, 9 showed up. And out of the 9, they all got systematized on our, we did one in-depth training, and we already have multiple deals that's been sold, and this was a 5-day turnaround. Yeah. So it's impressive to see that when you build foundation and plug people into that, within 5 days, they're already way ahead of where they would be with a different opportunity and already putting in deals, which is creating success for them and also creating success for a homeowner, putting them in a place to win.
Yeah, and that's ultimately why we do what we do, right? Is we've tried to rethink the experience for the homeowner. And yes, our system may make it easier for us to do our job, but our job is to provide a 5-star experience, a roofing experience that you don't get anywhere else when working with a homeowner, and really make that an awesome thing. I can't tell you how many times in my market, as well as what I've heard from other reps in other markets and from your customers, is that when they have their first Cool Roofs experience, it's unlike any other contractor, not just roofer, but contractor experience that they've ever had before. It's that good. Yep. And when your core of your business is focused on customer satisfaction and customer experience, it's going to grow. Yep. And so all the systems that we have, as great as they are, and I wish all of them were just technology, but the reality is people are a very important part of business. So as you said, system may not necessarily just be a tool or technology, but it might also be a trained individual to run in a certain lane on the track. And but when everything is focused on the customer experience and making sure that it is just awesome,
Yep.
everything really starts to align, and it becomes very clear what your system needs to look like and what it needs to be. And so we just tried to think, okay, what about the best customer experience that you get anywhere? The Chick-fil-A's, or when you have to call into a customer service support line, like what is that experience like? Or when you schedule an appointment, like what is the best appointment scheduling experience that we've ever had? And we're like, okay, let's take all of those best experiences and let's put those in the context of contracting, and in particular into roofing, and see what happens. And the results have been great. I think we're up to almost 400 5-star reviews across the country.
Yep.
People love it.
Yeah, and also we're creating successful individuals, giving them a career path. Like one of the coolest things I think we implemented, what you said about the bronze, is our ranking system. You know, it's easy to set goals. However, most people just wish. And if you just wish and don't put action behind it, it's just a dream. But for us, we roll out this plan. We've got bronze, silver, gold, diamond, platinum. If you hit gold within our organization this month, you're actually getting an all-inclusive VIP trip to Tony Robbins. So, like, why is that important? You know, it gives incentive, but it also helps people understand, like, hey, if I want to hit gold, that's X amount in revenue sold, that's value driven to the marketplace. In order to hit that, I need to sell X amount of roofs. So it, like, action-oriented plans this individual's day-to-day to keep them consistent and moving. So do you find that to be super, super important within building organization, is having that roadmap to success?
I do. I think the big thing about what the rank system has done is created a common language amongst everyone in the company. So it's easy to just say, oh yeah, I'm going to have a goal to sell $50,000 or a goal to sell $100,000 or $200,000 worth of roofs this month or this quarter. But whenever you have 30, 40 salespeople and 3 to 5 market managers, and everybody kind of has these different weighted goals, it's hard to measure whether or not that's a good goal or if it's a real goal. Is it a SMART goal? Is it possible? Is it simple? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it realistic? And is it timely? And so what we did is we said, let's eliminate the vagueness, and let's create a common language. Let's create common goals. And so a rep's immediate goal that we set for them when they join is get to a bronze specialist.
Yep.
And so when we have that common language, we know, okay, here's that threshold. Here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to achieve. Here's the trainings that you need to complete that are also paired and joined in with this process. And it's like, this is your goal for the first 2 months that you're with us, is to become a bronze associate. It makes it very simple and clear what our expectations are, but also it eliminates the decision fatigue that somebody may have sitting there with their pen and paper. How much do I need to sell? What does my goal need to be? What do I need to do and achieve? And instead we say, hey, this is what a successful roofing specialist looks like in their first 60, 90, 180 days.
Yeah.
And we make it very streamlined and very clear. And here's all the resources you need to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Here's the 360 immediate training that truly really just gives you a very high level look all the way around of what do we do, how do we do it, what are some of the tools we use. And then the implementation of what we've done with door-to-door experts and door-to-door university and Sam Taggart, and having the deeper level sales training and the strategy and the skill set and the mindset, as important as that is, it's so important. And then the continued resources and knowledge that we add on a weekly, almost daily basis, with our sales trainings that we have in person, our sales calls every Monday morning, and our Google Classroom that truly is a repository of all the information that any specialist could need. And then now having our guys be trained to think, okay, before I call my manager, or before I call my supervisor, and before I call Colt or Trey to ask this question, let me go see if they've already thought ahead of this and answered this question for me in one of these resources. And oftentimes they have, and if they haven't, they know, hey, let us know and we'll get it out there.
Yeah.
And so that's how it's almost a daily continued growth there. So I think it's very important, but the common language I think is the really, really big key that has helped that be successful.
And it's cool too, because like a lot of times when there's leadership, you can always fall on one of us to ask questions. Sure. But if the question has an answer that can be found within a platform that we've developed, for an example, like I wonder how much the IKO shingle costs per square when putting together an estimate. Rather than calling production or leadership, you could just go to that back pocket app, click it, go to IKO, and it shows you we've put it all the information there to where they can truly use that to be successful and make quick decisions. Calling me if I'm busy, calling you if you're busy, calling any other leadership, they can't get that. So it doesn't make them look like a professional in the customer's eyes. Rather, they can just be like, wait 1 second, let me go ahead and do this, pull it up, the information's there, it's the knowledge, and they just apply it.
Yeah, can I ask a follow-up question there? Because you said makes them look like a professional in the customer's eyes. And I think one of the things that we both agree on is speed and timeliness is super important to really
we live in a microwave society.
Yeah.
People want things quick, instant, right then and there.
Yeah. How important do you think it is, the systems, the tech, and the training and resources we have in allowing us to do that?
Yeah, I think everything is speed, because speed does define professionalism. And in that instance as well, like of course when we do larger projects such as commercial, there's not so much speed there, because it's a strenuous process to make sure that we do dot all of our I's and cross all of our T's.
Yeah.
But the thing that I pride ourselves on is like we're a communication company first, setting proper expectations and then living up to those expectations. And then following that, we have organization that keeps everything fluid and aligned to then lead up to proper production, which is overall execution. And then we can walk away knowing that every step of the way we gave it our all, backed by our systems to assure a 5-star service.
Yeah, for sure. And that's coming on commercial.
Oh, for sure.
So,
we've done some massive projects here just recently this month. A beautiful big church here in Austin, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Camp Power Sports down there in Kyle, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
You're working on some massive projects. We're working on a big school right now. There's
done a bunch of work for Enterprise Rental Car in the Mid-South. We've done a lot of work for some big name brands for sure. It's coming though. We're diving in there, and I think that's been a really interesting part of our business too, is over the last several years we've seen our commercial division grow.
Yeah.
And the revenue of our company has grown exponentially year over year, but the percentage of that revenue that is generated from commercial business has also grown exponentially. And so we're seeing more of that.
And what's crazy, something I reflected, last month, or June, was our biggest month to date of the company's history.
Yeah. And
then we go into July, and July was 38% more than June. So it's crazy to see the increase. But I think all that revenue just exemplifies is value to the marketplace. It means that you're successfully helping an immense amount of people, and you're doing it in a professional way.
Absolutely.
Because if you were to hit the revenue that we did in June and then hit it in July, that's typically just in that month, which is what probably like 20% of roofing companies do within a year, you know? And so for us to do it in a month, if you don't have that infrastructure to back that and have the production in place, then it can get dirty really quick.
For sure.
So being in Memphis, this is just what's really cool, is perfecting systems to plug into areas. That's what I love about roofing.
Yeah.
Like roofing is the same it is here. It could be just a little bit different as it is there, but the overall concept and idea of what needs to be done from a problem to a solution is pretty much uniformity across the board.
Yeah.
So you took everything that we've built and planted a flag in Memphis. And since then you've done numerous luxury top-of-the-line products with Certainty Belmont. You've done that massive apartment complex. What is that like to know that what you've worked so hard on to build, you even gave me you called me like, hey, do you mind if, knowing how all this works now, if I open up my own branch and build this? So as the COO of our company, now you're also a roofing specialist yourself, running your own branch, and it's doing unbelievably well.
Appreciate
What does that look like to you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was really cool about me not being here is it did require me to really focus in on how do I make this a company that can run off of a smartphone or off of the internet. And so everything is very cloud based. Like we're able, if we wanted to open a branch, and I've worked very diligently with the rest of our team as well, our chief administrator, Maddie, our CMO, Trey Martinez, and have worked very diligently to make it where if somebody wants to join the Cool Roofs operation and team, and maybe they lead a sales team, or maybe they have 10 years like Hudson did of experience in the roofing space, and they want to come in and they want to plant the flag. They want to be a part of bringing Cool Roofs to their particular market. It's very simple process. You know, our setup to really launch something like that is probably a week, and we're ready to go because we're so nimble and quick and technology based. Whereas a traditional business, they're gonna think we've got to buy a house or rent a place to have, or we've got to buy trucks, or we've got to have all this technology, and we've got to hire these W-2 employees. And the reality is we've made it so simple to set up that once we got to that point, I was like, well, why can't I just do one, right? And I had some great support and help and some awesome salespeople who had come from some other roofing companies who knew that I worked with Cool Roofs, but also knew I was not in Memphis, and said, why are you not doing this here? Because what we have is just a different caliber of system than what most people across the country, but especially in the Mid-South, where we're typically behind the bell curve when it comes to technology and innovation. I think that's going to change soon. Elon Musk moved XAI and bought a huge warehouse, and I've had several of our friends from Austin text me and say, hey, my brother or my friend is moving to Memphis to work for Elon's company. And so we're seeing that tech revolution happen in our city. And so I think that's coming. Yeah. But typically we've been very behind. And as you said, we're a communication and a technology company who happens to install roofs. And so I think that was a big factor of it. And then, you know, also just working hard and being consistent. You know, we had that really large project that you've referenced a couple times. And the part that people don't always see is that for 18 months, we really worked hard just to do a lot of repairs at very low margins to add value and to help a community who really needed it, a community who some of the big names in town had kind of abandoned and left them in a situation where they weren't getting any support, they weren't getting any help, they weren't getting called back, they weren't getting the support through their insurance lawsuit that they needed. And we just stepped in and said, look, we will help you and we will be a part of this just because it's the right thing to do. And in the long run, doing the right thing will turn out for you. I'm not saying that it will necessarily result in you getting the $1 million contract, but doing the right thing is always the right thing to do.
And I know the success that you've had up there, we've also seen the attractability that it's brought upon us, like attracting someone like Joseph and all these other individuals. I mean, there's so many people out there who are part of a roofing company that still use file cabinets.
Oh, yeah.
That still take inspection pictures that are found within their personal phone and not put into any type of report system. You know, there's really, it's just a low entry type of industry. But once you pass that like 5 million threshold and you understand like insurance and how much that costs of a business and the taxes and the technology and just everything that goes into it, no wonder why so many companies fail within this industry, because I don't think they properly prep for it. And I'm all about people starting their own business. I'd be a hypocrite to say if I didn't support it, because obviously we started our own here. But that's one thing that I think we've done so well, is to build a front end system for people to excel while handling all of the back end. Because there's so much that goes into the day-to-day operations of a business. Just if we only focus on the category of selling, There's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah.
So if we can find these people like the Josephs and whatnot who
Sure.
we've just so blissfully attracted, this really puts them in a position to just absolutely dominate, only focusing on customer value-driven actions, and then everything in the back end as far as accounting to insurance to, I mean, there's a huge list of things that are run by your department, things that you do.
Yeah.
It just makes for a win-win situation.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you hit the nail on the head that we've been very blessed to have the people that we've had come into our organization.
Yep.
And I think it's just a testimony to God's faithfulness over us being a good steward. And that's something that I really, when I talk not only in the business world, but also about my faith and in that world, is what does good stewardship look like? You can go through this goal setting process, or you can just say, hey, if I'm faithful with what I've been given, that's what I'm called to do.
Yeah.
Today has enough trouble of its own, as Christ said, right?
Yeah.
So don't worry about tomorrow. And so, I think that's been something that's been really, really unique about what we've done, is we've just been like, what do we have right in front of us today? And how can we be faithful and a good steward with it, whether it's a customer, an opportunity, or a salesperson or a market manager. And I think that's what's been really neat. And that was where the big shift happened for me, was if I can prove that with no roofing experience, prior true roofing experience other than running the back end of the company, that we can open up a branch and have $1 million year our first 12 months in business, which we far surpassed that, which was, again, another blessing, right? I think that somebody who has roofing experience can plug into this system and have a lot more success than that. And we've seen that. And that's what's happening in places like San Antonio and what's happened in Austin. And we're really seeing that quick.
And also, one thing that's overlooked is just the mitigation of liability.
Oh, yeah.
For a lot of these guys who are in roofing, the next step is, hey, I want to open my own company, or, hey, I want to do a massive focus on commercial.
Yeah.
And commercial is way different than residential. It's the nature of the beast. Yeah, it is what it is. But if you don't do it right, then you can really set yourself up for failure and put yourself in a very liable position.
Yeah.
So that's what I love here, is not only do we put them in a position to make more money where they're currently at, but we also paint a picture of like, hey, you have all the resources, the leadership. You have people like Hudson Witten, who's been in roofing for 17 plus years now. You have Eddie, who's been in roofing for 11 plus years. We've seen things and had different experiences that we've learned from, that what we learned in the past will really keep us from having to repeat in the future. And so bringing people in, teaching them the ins and outs of roofing, but also leading them through each individual deal, just like puts everyone in a place to be successful.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a tendency in this industry to go very heavy as opposed to very lean.
Yep.
And I think that, we empower people to be business owners. So our systems and the way that our company is structured actually does empower specialists and managers to be a business owner. Yeah. And to really utilize our system to grow your business. And so I think what happens is a lot of roofing companies get heavy because they're focused on maybe the appearance of size as opposed to the reality of size. And so they pick up, there's these two primary expenses that you deal with in our industry, and that's your fixed expenses and then your variable expenses. Now your variables, the more money you make, the more money you're going to spend, yep. Right? This is your material, your labor. It may even be some of your other costs associated with operating and running the business, your insurance, your taxes, even your software. But your fixed is your rent, your trucks, your heavy cost items that really can, if you're not careful, be so big and put you in that heavy bucket where you're just, in order to break even, you've got to sell so many more projects. And so you're always kind of chasing that, hey, can I get to that break even point, where when you go real lean, but you build it around other people being able to thrive and succeed, it makes it where you're not going to be stressing out about, can we pay all the truck notes this month?
Yep.
Because you've got this system that doesn't necessarily require that and allows guys to go and buy nicer trucks than we'd be able to give them anyways with the commissions and the earnings that they make as managers and reps. And so I think there's just a lot of ways to do that in business, but I think that's a mistake we see often in the contracting world is people get very heavy as opposed to staying very lean and nimble, which allows you to make those changes, make those adjustments. It allows us to be able to say, hey, we're going to divert some focus to this market, or we're going to divert some focus to this sector of roofing, to the luxury and the commercial, and to not really feel a huge squeeze in a transition period because some of these things are already running for you.
And it's so true. Like, there's so many people, I mean, a handful at least, that I've had the opportunity to kind of share our experience in roofing, and then they take that because they see what it is that we do, but they don't understand, like, the sickening work ethic that is shared between our leadership group and how much time and just like commitment and passion goes into this thing. It's disgusting. Like, I mean, it is just, I've never seen a group of people work harder than the people that we have here.
Oh, for sure.
And so when I tell people, I give them advice. I'm like, hey, if you are to do this, go lean. There's no need for the big trucks. There's no need for the trailers starting off. There's no need for an office. And it's crazy, that comment that we made at the beginning of this is how many people didn't really listen to that, and they go and they get the trailers, they get the trucks, they get the office. The next thing you know, the next conversation is like, we're doing okay, but there's just not a lot of opportunity out there. I'm like, that's crazy. We did like 40-plus roofs last month. There's more opportunity out there than you know what to do with, but the problem is you're now distracted because of your liabilities that are on the monthly, and it's taking you away, the stressor of taking care of that, to actually go out and sell. And so true when you say that. Most people want to look a certain way, be a certain way on good old social media, when in reality it's like, hey man, take a step back, fixate your systems properly, make sure that you're properly insured, make sure that you're set up properly for taxes, make sure that you're set up in the event that something was to happen. We'll call that a little rainy day fund, Mr. What's that guy who wears the glasses? Ramsey. Yeah. Old Ramsey. And have yourself in a position to win, rather than, people are so fixated on looking the part, rather than really focusing on them and their business to properly be the part. You've had a huge role in that, in just having a thumb so tight, not only on our operations, but on our expenses as well. Because all people know, like, within this industry, anything can come up, and you have to be prepared for it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that really resonates there is, not focusing on looking the part, but focusing on becoming, right? Because, to be honest, when we started out, we weren't who we are today, but we were so committed to and enjoyed the journey. I often think, I'm like, we're going to look back, and even sometimes now, as great as this place is and where we are, it was so much fun when we're sitting in the conference room and we're whiteboarding, and we will never be there again.
Yeah.
But what a fun part of the journey that is for us to be able to reflect on here 3.5 years later. And so I think if you're so focused on, I've got to already be there, that you don't get to enjoy the becoming, the getting to wherever it is you want to go, that you miss out on those really awesome moments. You miss out on the sleeping on the couch, a week or two out of the month, and you miss out on the first really awesome roofing specialist that comes and joins your team with a guy like Hudson Witten, where it just changes the trajectory of where we're going. And you miss out on the little things that end up really over the long haul being the things that mean the most to you.
And there's such an enjoyable fact of, like, enjoying every moment to take advantage of the day to build the better tomorrow. Like, you make a good point. It, like, hits me now, like, to think where we're at today. We used to walk up the stairs into this conference room and talk about our possibilities, what we could become. Now we walk in this awesome office that we have, and just all along the walls are just these huge, like, luxury Da Vinci projects, massive apartment complexes, like all these projects that we've been able to complete. It's just amazing. Like, how do you get to that level? You get to it by diving deep with your people, having the proper leadership conversations, and understanding what's in it for them and help them get to that overall goal.
Yeah.
And there was one thing that I love, just to talk about systems real quick, that you've created, is John Maxwell talks about leadership. And when we recruit these amazing people that come over, it's not necessarily the ability to recruit them, it's our responsibility to properly place them.
Yeah.
And so we've done so well at that, is finding people's working genius and what it is that they give so well as far as a talent, and putting them in that system for them to grow.
For sure.
So,
and we're getting better at that every day. You know, I think it's one of those things that you don't know until it kind of comes to you, but always reflecting on, is this person in the right seat on the bus?
For sure.
Because we're going down the road, 100 miles an hour, and if we've got somebody in the wrong seat, maybe they're not good at navigation, maybe they're a great driver, right? Yeah. Like let's put them in the right seat on the bus, and
to comment on that, we've had people in our business that we had in sales, and we're like, this might just not be for them. But in reality, we had a point guard playing a post.
Yeah.
And once we put, a point guard in his point guard position and took him to production or took him to inside, whatever it may be, they've flourished and excelled at a whole new level.
For sure.
And, people want to feel comfortable in their position, and they want to grow. And a lot of people are like, well, you got to get out of your comfort zone. I agree. But that comfort zone that you're getting out of has to reflect on the skill set and truly your goals of what you want to do. Because for us, a lot of times we're like, you have to make $500,000 in this instance for this person. Sometimes like that's a conversation that comes up in sales, but in reality, that's not it. Like, someone is more than happy just to have the freedom and make $50,000 a year, or the freedom and make $100,000 a year. So I think that's the big thing that you've always done so well, is just asking, like, hey, what do you want from this opportunity? How can we position you and help you be successful?
For sure. I think a prime example of that is Daniel Schuler, right? Who is probably the best account manager in the state of Texas across any business division. And Daniel started out as an admin, right? And he worked hard, because that's what he does. He works hard, and he shows up, and he's consistent. But that was not his genius. And we could see it after 6 months. It's like it was wearing on him a little bit. And after figuring out, okay, what is he really good at? He's so great with people and engaging, and I think he's generated 100 5-star reviews in his first 6 months working with us, because he's been so diligent about doing a great job, as he always did, but also he's been in the right position. He's been in a place where he does get to interact and to build relationship and focus on the people side as an account manager.
And they love him.
And he's great at it.
The other day, I don't even know if you know this, I was like, where are you at? He's like, well, I'm in Houston. I said, why are you in Houston? He goes, well, I just want to stop by and bring tacos and donuts to all of our strategic partners down here. I'm like, you really do go above and beyond.
Yeah.
But that's such a good example, man. Going from somewhere where he did a great job, but once we put him in this, I mean.
Stellar. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So you being CEO of a business in roofing, what are some insights that you would give to anyone out there that's running in the position that you run, that really you think would help them just be that much better?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest things is knowing when to give something up, right? Because as the operator, when you're starting out and you're small and you're maybe a 2-man shop like we were, you get used to doing all of these things, and you have to be able to discern when is it time to give it up, right? And I don't mean like quit on it. I mean pass it off to somebody who you can trust to do a good enough job at what it is that it's now worth your time to spend on the next evolution of the business, on the next process, on the next system. And so there's a twofold component of that, and that is, number one, you got to find the right people that can plug in, whether it's an administrator or whether it's a production manager, whatever that is. And then there's the second part where it's like you've got to make it easy for them to do that. So you've got to be able to train them, to teach them, to take that time and invest it into somebody to then allow yourself to be freed up to work on the next thing. And so I think that's one of the big things that really helps somebody in an operations role is knowing when, and then also knowing how to pass things on and to allow other people to take on some serious responsibility, but also to do so with accountability. Yeah. So to create accountability in that system that assures that you don't put yourself in a bad situation, or that you don't set them up for failure, but rather you set them up for success. And so I think that's been a learning curve for me, because we've never built a business this size before, but it's also been something that I think has been, again, another blessing, is that the Lord's been faithful in giving me the discernment to know who and what can I give different things and tasks and initiatives. Whether, I remember I used to do all the warranties, and I was like, I got to get out of warranty, right? Yeah. And then I used to do all of our job costing completely by myself, and it's like I got to have some support on our job costing, and then there's our CRM cleanup and our management and our bookkeeping, and we've given these things to trusted partners or to people inside of our business, and it's really freed me up to then work more on the business and less in it, or at least less in it in certain areas. I love being in the business a little bit, and that's one thing I think also as an operator I think is super important. And this happened when we opened the Tennessee branch, is it allowed me to fully understand from the roofing specialist level what needed to happen and change, because I was able to be on the front lines and also at the very end of the track. I was able to be right at the finish line, and so I was able to see what needs to happen here to make this go really smoothly. And
that was my favorite part of you doing the branch up there, because I knew prior to you even doing it, this would be an amazing opportunity to even become that much better of a COO, because you're actually seeing the day-to-day and what goes into it, and how can we tweak the things. And I don't think people overlook this, but the COO is literally the heart. It's the heartbeat of the company. I mean, there's a heart attack that can come anytime through any way, but to have someone who's very responsive and very calm like you, I mean, from the situations that we've gone through, I mean, every company's like, we're the best, we're this, we're that. Well, there's one thing in common. We might all think that or strive for that, but we all go through things that are detrimental to the company. And what I've noticed and what I respect about you is how we come together as a team, and we look at these issues that we come across and we say, okay, cool. What's the solution here? How can we handle this? And are we financially prepped in order to serve here? And I think that's what's really continued to help this boat steer in the right direction, is just being mindful of not only what we have today, but prepping ourselves to mitigate any liability in the future and be properly prepped for that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a strong word. I appreciate that for sure. I take a lot of pride in making sure that our company is positioned that way so that we can weather the storm. I think it's one of those things they say, don't tie your boats together during a storm. Yeah. But I think when you go into business partnership, that's exactly what you do, is you tie your boats together. And so, the storm comes and you're like, man, these ropes, but I think that as Tony Robbins taught us when we went to that most recent event, one of the things that I just really resonate with is changing the way that we talk, the language that we use to describe those challenges, or what you would call a bad situation, you now call an annoying situation. This is annoying that we have to deal with this, but here we are. And so rather than us dwelling or being upset or really putting a whole lot of energy that's anything other than maybe a little bit of a towards it, I think things that used to be detrimental or used to be terrible are now just annoying. It's annoying, but we'll get past it, and yeah, maybe I had this planned, but now I don't, and I'll just push that, to tomorrow, Lord willing. So.
What does Jim Rohn say? Every time a problem comes up, he just looks at it and goes, that's interesting. It's like, wow, this is interesting. How do we figure this out?
That's interesting.
And he also said something pretty valuable that you always bring up. He's like, problems. He's like, most problems handle themselves by 3:00.
That's true.
So true.
Well, at least when you have a good system, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the value of having the system and great leadership. Not only like when we talk about leadership, we're not talking about Colt and I.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about we have so many awesome leaders inside of our organization. Men and women who just really pride themselves in being servant-minded and servant-hearted, and it's so cool.
Disgusting culture, in a good way. It's
blessed.
Just nothing but high energy, well-driven, goal-driven, and it's cool when you have a healthy place to work on a day-to-day. And it's very growth-oriented. It not only makes you a better person in the world of business, but it also makes you that much better in your community, in your relationship, in your friendships. It's just like, I swear, like when we had people come work for us, within like 2 months, I think they're walking different.
A little taller, walking
back,
a little taller.
Having fun, life's good.
Oh, man, prime examples, Tim Riggins himself, Mr. Aaron Werline. Just became a gold associate this month.
Yeah, it's
just
crazy.
Walking tall, got his cool shades on.
I showed up to a job site the other day that he was on. I wanted to go support him, and I look, and there's a guy on the roof just like waving a Cool Roofs flag, and I'm like, shut up. And it's Aaron. He's like, what's up, man? I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm letting the neighbors know. I'm like, there's like 3 signs in the yard, and he's up there waving a flag while the guys are working. It's
they
like
definitely know.
Just rushed a freaking war scene.
He was strapped in there, right, for OSHA.
Oh, for sure.
Okay,
that
good.
flag was going to take off with him.
Yeah.
But, well, no, this has been exciting, and I think the overall summary of what it is I've discussed today is just like, if you're building a business, you have to have that heartbeat of the company that has the tight thumb not only over the finances but also just the overall operations, because if you want to go far, they always say you have to have a good team, but behind a good team, the way that you get a great team is by having unbelievable systems, and then behind those systems is leadership, and then behind that leadership is proper values set in place of how you want your company to be, look, feel, and how you stand behind that. And I think that's something that we've done so well, and it is crazy. I mean, for us to always reflect back on just how life works. I mean, it was even crazier. It's like when we were in the war room one day talking about roofing, a door knocker knocked on that house that I owned at the time to sell me solar, and you set it up. And then next thing I know, 3 days later, this guy named Jonathan Baldridge just sitting down with me, like selling me solar. Yeah. And what's crazy about that is now, that was 2019, 2020, and now it's 2024, and Jonathan runs our whole entire solar division. So do you have like the Midas touch? It's like, boom, you're going to be a Cool Roofs penguin one day. Here they are.
Penguins are great animals. So, I think you're right. And I think the other thing, too, that has just been a tremendous piece of our culture, but also just our growth, is the values that we uphold. And truly sticking to your values. And I think it's less about what they are, but more about you establish what they are, and you establish that mission, and you establish your creed, and you stick to it. Because I think that ultimately in leadership and in business and in life, when you say, this is who I desire to be, this is what I desire to uphold and stand for from a values perspective and from a mission perspective, and then you do it and you live it out, you really build a lot of confidence in who you are and what you stand for. And so whatever it is, whatever those values are for you and your business, just maintaining those and sticking to those and being somebody that can build that confidence on that. You're not only going to build it in yourself, but your team is going to see how you live that out and how you truly believe it. And if those values align with who they are, which would mean they're a right fit for your culture, then they're going to really succeed and excel and stick around. And so I think that's where we've really been really blessed and had a great opportunity just to serve in that way. This is who we are. We're a company of communication and integrity and teamwork and relationships and being solution minded, and we've stuck to that. We've led that way. We've handled our own customers that way. We've interacted with our team members that way, and they do the same.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, man, I'm grateful that you're here in town. It's going to be an unbelievable weekend.
Yeah.
I feel like you live here. We talk on the phone at least 10 times a day, maybe if not more.
Yeah.
All my ingoing, outgoing is GOAT, Trey Stafford, GOAT. So it's been a heck of a good podcast with the GOAT, Mr. Trey Stafford.
Appreciate
that. For those of you out there, just always remember the importance of having a true leader that leads the front of the company, and then another leader that sits there alongside him and helps him really navigate everything. I always say I'm the visionary, and you're the one who's like, okay, if we're going to do that, we have to do X, Y, and Z, and that's just so cool to have. So excited to look back not only on what we've done together, starting from that war room, but then look back 3 years from now on this podcast and seeing how far we've grown. So
Run it back.
If you don't mind, everyone, as I say this at the end, if you can click the subscribe button below. One of the things that we're really working hard to is to keep pushing out content, keep pushing out education, not only how to run a proper business, how to lead a proper business, but how to, better understand products and, services within the industry that we're in, which is roofing, to help you both on a commercial outplay as well as a residential play. So, Trey, any last words before we wrap this thing up? I'm going to let you end it for us.
Definitely go subscribe.
100%.
More great things to come. Thankful for you guys watching. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. We're out.